What's up? This is another Back to the Basics Brief. This is a pre-recording. What you had just listened to was another groove pad featuring Back to the Basics production called Trap Mix. So let's talk about this student debt. I know there's a lot of other things going on, COVID-19, Black Lives Matter is still trending amongst other things, amongst other tragedies that have occurred and are occurring, unfortunately. But I did want to take time. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on around here. And I wanted to talk about the money. Shout out to the Information Man podcast for emphasizing how important it is for us to support Black businesses. Because it is important. He's not the only one who shares that viewpoint. But this student debt has really, really gotten out of control. $1.6 trillion. Yeah, trillion. Yes. I had been heard, I do a lot of research. I do read a lot, and amongst other things. And I was thinking, I remember the housing bubble of 2008, which really started around 2005, 6-ish. There were people talking about it, but then it wasn't until, 2008 in late September when the market, my goodness, it fell almost 800 points. I will get back and talk about that because there is a reason why I mentioned it. But student debt in relation to generational wealth. You know, there is a channel holder who asked a question. I'm going to paraphrase what he said because he had asked a question, what is holding our people back? And again, I'm paraphrasing because his question was actually longer than that. It was more extensive. My answer to that was at the time is that we're not on code. Our people are not together. At the time, he might not have agreed with me as far as how I said that, but we're just not together. And I'm talking about in general. But also, you know, acquiring generational wealth, that is another obstacle, or should I say, has been an obstacle for us. And I was thinking, okay, I was just thinking, I said, all right, now where is all of our money actually going? Besides, the basic essentials and, going back and forth to work, or some people are teleworking now and other things. Well, for those who went to college, many people are paying on their student loans. And like I said, this is just one area. Getting into, mortgages and all that. But I was trying to really look deep and think, okay, what can impact our credit score? And having, your student loan reported as default to a credit reporting agency like, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, that right there could cause people's, and it most likely will cause a person's credit score to fall drastically. I'm talking anywhere from 50 to 100 points. Now, mind you, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, they are slightly different. That's why whenever I was, cleaning up my credit, I definitely got a 3-in-1 credit report with the FICO score. Like, I wanted to see everything, every detail as far as my car loan, my student loan repayment, everything. I wanted to see a snapshot of everything, and I wanted it compared across all 3 credit bureaus. But anyway, let's talk about this debt. I'm going to get some of this stuff off the screen. You remove the banner. I'm going to remove that. Let me see. Now I'm going to share the screen. There we go. Let me share this screen. Oh yeah, let me take off this banner so you can actually see the screen. Let me take that off of there. There we go. Now we can see the screen. I'm going to move myself out of the way because I want you to focus on this article. This is a recent article. This is an article published June 12th, 2020 by Abigail Hess of CNBC. How student debt became a $1.6 trillion crisis. And yes, it is a crisis. I'm going to try to read right here up under the picture now. Some 44 million Americans collectively hold over $1.6 trillion in student debt. And these numbers are growing. At the same time, advancements in technology, especially automation, are making it harder to earn a living wage without some type of advanced degree. And then in my bubble, I pretty much put, like computers and, artificial intelligence is replacing the human workforce. That's pretty much what I put. And because, tuition costs of college has increased over the years, now, some people are starting to rethink college. So do they risk going into debt they can't pay back or miss out on the benefits of a college degree? Very good question. I will say this. And I will say this, hey, and just make it plain. The borrower is slave to the lender. And as far as the benefits of college, I will say this, there is no guarantee that a person, after they graduate with their degree, that they will be working at the job that they, they'll be working in the field that they studied for. And I understand what some people are going to say. Well, my goodness, are you anti-education? Of course not. I went to college. I sure did. I have a bachelor's degree. But when I got out of college, I graduated December of 2008 during the time of the 2008 recession. So finding work was difficult. And how the game goes, usually about 6 months after you graduate from college, that's when payments for your student loan begins. And that's what I'm going to say about that. I would say if anyone is considering, and it doesn't matter what it is, whether if it's college, the military, a community college, a technical school, whatever it is, I would say, first of all, research and consider all of your options. And I will furthermore add, if you do choose to go into debt, then please let it be something that is worth it, as far as engineering or whatever it may be. Back to the article. So, student debt. And then, of course, now we have another crisis. Another kind of crisis hit The crown royal virus. I will not say those two words. Y'all see what it says. I will not say neither word. And then an economic crisis followed. So we have a student debt crisis. We have the crown royal virus crisis, and we also have an economic crisis, because that was why that led to the CARES Act, that 2.2 trillion to be passed. In February, the United States officially entered an economic recession. Wow. Okay. And went too far, y'all. And between mid-March and June, over 42.6 million Americans filed for unemployment. That's a lot of people. A lot of people are filing for unemployment. Now, here comes that 2008 recession. 2008 recession, many opted to go back to school and gain new skills. But since then, about 12 years ago, the cost of a 4-year college degree has increased by 25%, and student debt increased by, well over 100%. Okay, 107%. And many are less sure if college will be the solution to riding out a recession this time. So again, now, people are thinking like, okay, so people went back to school in 2008, and tuition was this. Now, look at how much it's costing us now. Might want to save that money and try to do something else. Let me keep going. Let's see. Now we're going to get into the history of student debt. Here we go. The real formative period for U.S. higher education was more or less 1890 to 1940, when college started to be something that wasn't just a vacation or for the few and the wealthy. So of course there was a period in time where, like has been emphasized, in history before, that college was one of those things preserved for the haves, or the aristocrats of society, I guess, as some people would say, or the fat cats, whatever type of terminology you want to put on them, the rich people, the elite. See, even in 1919, let me see, the majority of American college students remained wealthy white men for decades. So again, this will just give you the history. In 1944, the GI Bill was signed, giving millions of veterans, mostly white men, the chance to go to college for free. Again, 1944. In the 1954 Supreme Court ruling of Brown versus Board of Education, this is where the court unanimously decided to strike down the separate but equal doctrine created by Plessy versus Ferguson, making school segregation illegal and paving the way for more Black students to earn a college degree. And then in 1958, the National Defense Education Act, which offered students scholarships and loans to go to college. So now what they have now is people fill out the FAFSA, right? So FAFSA, let me do my note here. FAFSA, capital FAFSA, is the free application for federal student aid. This is where many people apply and they get approved for the Pell Grant. And many of the states across this country have supplemental grants and amongst other things. The reference for that is studentaid.gov. Studentaid.gov. Lyndon Baines Johnson's War on Poverty led to the Higher Education Act of 1965. Grants were now given to students based on their income. Again, the FAFSA. So all this was going on in the late 1950s and mid 1960s. Hold on here. There we go. At the time, education costs were low and college enrollment grew. So did the US economy. So again, the 1950s and 60s, our economy was doing decent. This is where our people were getting into the middle class. And we had a very strong, and I'm going to say this, I know I wasn't there, but I know from what I've studied and I know from talking to various people that we also had a very strong manufacturer base. Like we made things. And then, well, I'm not even going to get into NAFTA and CAFTA, but y'all already know where I'm going with this. We had people advancing, making automobiles in the steel mills, construction. Our economy was growing during this time. And then unfortunately, with the Vietnam War escalating under Lyndon Baines Johnson, who did not seek the presidential ticket in 1968 when he saw that RFK was coming. And then unfortunately, he was murdered, assassinated. But due to the escalation of the Vietnam War, and our spending getting out of control, and amongst other things that happened during the 60s and 70s, with our money, thanks to Richard Nixon, our money was permanently separated from the gold standard, permanently in 1972. And when that happened, well, that's when the petrodollar came to be. But let me keep going. That's another rabbit hole. So now that we done pushed through, I done, did some commentary about the 1960s and 70s, then here comes Ronald Reagan. During the Reagan era and the tax revolt of the 1980s, states passed tax and expenditure limitations, restrictions that state governments create to limit the amount they can tax or spend. So what happened was the state budgets came under threat. So states that used to basically highly subsidize a college education for many people started to cut back in various ways, either by raising tuition or by spending less. This all happened, I repeat, I'm emphasizing this for a reason. This all happened during the Ronald Reagan administration. But yet some of you guys act like Ronald Reagan can't do no wrong. Like he was such a great president. But anyway, Reagan cut higher education funding and student aid, and college cost boomed as a result. I pretty much put here that the Reagan administration helped widen the gap between the haves and the haves not, the rich and the poor. Let me see. So by 1990, those costs increased to $26,050 and $9,800 respectively. And this is comparing, let me see. This is comparing private to public college. So in the early 2000s, the Bush administration, George W. Bush, made it a lot easier for online education to grow. Hold on here. Then in December 2007, the Great Recession hit. Federal and state governments made deep cuts to higher education funding. This caused many of these schools to raise tuition in order to recoup the lost revenue. And then the labor market weakened. So pretty much the perfect storm happened during this time. Let me see. Let me keep going. From the start of the Great Recession in 2008 to the relative economic stability of 2018, college costs and debt increased significantly, but state and federal funding for higher education has not returned to pre-2008 levels. See, this is the sad part. This right here. This whole thing right here. So from the start of 2008, state and federal funding for higher education has not returned to pre-2008 levels. So you know what that means? That means that more people are taking out student loans in which they will have to pay back later. And like I said before, you know, the borrower is slave to the lender. That means that the money that could be used for something else is being used to pay back student loans, most likely. Here we go. The College Board estimates that today, college graduates with student loans leave school with $29,000 in debt on average. Okay, so Nicole Smith is the chief economist, there we go, at the Georgetown University Center on Education and the Workforce. So she is an economist. People who went to school in the 70s and the 60s, they actually paid for college while working. They would take a summer job and they would pay their tuition, she says. And by the time they graduated, they would be debt free or just a couple $100, a couple $1,000 to get by. They paid that off in a couple of years and move on with their lives. So you see the difference? People paid for college while working, take on a summer job, and then by the time they graduated, they'd be either debt free or a couple hundred or a couple thousand. And then they would, they pay that off in a couple years and they move on. But that's not what's happening today. So this young lady, Nicole Smith, and chief economist from, of course, Georgetown University, she also points out that student debt holds some borrowers back from building intergenerational wealth, thus exacerbating the existing racial wealth gap. So pretty much, because money is being spent on repaying loans, then that affects how and if a person can save their money and use it to think about, putting back money for, a child's education or whatever have you. The next paragraph, as you can see, there are numbers. There's a comparison between, different loan borrowers. And that just emphasizes a significant racial pay gap. Let me keep going here. The average Black household has about 1/13 the wealth of the average white household. And if you view student loan debt as negative wealth, that potential wealth is now used to repay loans. I'm not going to beat that up because I was just talking about that. These dynamics hold Black families back from building wealth and saving to send their children to college, further fueling the cycle. I just emphasized that. And like I said, this is one thing that is holding our people back from success. That right there. This is to answer that YouTuber's question. Number one, we're not on code. We're not together. And number two, we have obstacles that are holding us back from even acquiring generational wealth. Now, mind you, I said obstacles. I do believe those obstacles can be removed. Mrs. Smith also states that additionally, student debt has a disproportionate impact on women. And then I already talked about the perfect storm of inequality. But women hold roughly 2/3 of all student debt in the nation. As of 2019, women hold almost $929 billion in outstanding student debt. And here's what's going on. You have women who are taking out higher and higher loans, and their ability to repay is influenced by their lower wages. Now, how does that impact people as far as their life choices? Borrowers have delayed getting married, having kids, and have put off buying a home. And that right there is huge. That's not good for us at all. because that is affecting, how a person lives, Student debt also has a significant impact on decisions they make about where and what to study, as well as their mental health. So, in the next paragraph, this was a student talking, a Columbia University student, and the one key word that I highlighted was worry. Worry and anxiety, it's not good for anybody, particularly when we're looking at a group mostly from the ages of 18 to 24 who should not be worrying. You know, they're just starting their life. They shouldn't be worried about anything. They should be seizing the day and not worrying about anything. Let me see. We're going to go down a little bit further. This right here compares the price. This is the price at, let me see, tuition fees, room and board at Columbia University. And then there's the average price for a Columbia student who qualifies for financial aid. So there is a difference there. So the sticker price is $83,293. And then for the student who qualifies for financial aid is roughly $23,000. Still a lot though. Let me keep going. There we go. So here we go. Now we're going to talk about how this student debt, really we're more really talking about how COVID-19, I guess, is affecting student debt. The COVID-19 forced colleges to close their campuses and forced millions of students to take classes online. Some students across the country are suing their schools for refunds, and the government passed a $2 trillion economic stimulus package that included a 6-month break on student debt payments. Okay, I'm going to stop right here because listen, I did a whole video about credit scores. And it was called Some Credit Scores Are, and then I put 3 dots. Because even though they passed a 6-month break on student debt payments, there are many people where student loan agencies are reporting to the credit bureaus that people are not paying and that they are defaulting on their student loans. And you know what that means? That means people's credit scores are lowered. And then number 2, that means that some people have even had their wages garnished. I've already done a video about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that video in the description box. The Great Black Shark, he said it during one of his premieres. And if you haven't subscribed to the Great Black Shark, you need to go over there and like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for the Great Black Shark. He talked about there pretty much was another wealth transfer in this country. And you know what? Many of us didn't even see it. Some of us didn't even see it in 2008. But like I said, he wasn't the only one to talk about the stimulus. The Information Man show, he talked about it. But now, again, we just cannot allow ourselves to be fooled by these smoke and mirrors. Just because something passed, we also have to be like, okay, was that good or was it bad? How did that actually impact the average American? Not these banks, but the average American. Like, what did that help or hurt? And it looks to me like that 2 trillion economic stimulus package hurt. And we can argue that all day. Well, I got $1,200. Okay, but not everybody got their $1,200. In May, House Democrats passed a second economic stimulus package that would, among other things, cancel up to $10,000 worth of debt. The legislation is yet to pass the Senate. Of course. Cancel debt when the borrower is slave to the lender? Oh, no, no, no. I don't think they would ever allow that to happen. Okay, Betsy Mayo, president and founder of the Institute of Student Loan Advisors, says, I don't think forgiveness is going to happen. Me neither. And what people have to remember is that the money that comes in from student loans is also used to pay for things like Pell Grants. So now we see a cycle. So now if people can't pay their student loans and that same money is used to pay for things like the Pell Grant, well, there goes the Pell Grants. And then she goes on to say, if it wasn't for those grants, low-income people wouldn't be able to attend school. I really didn't like this question, who is to blame? But I guess it all depends upon how a person looks at that question. A generation ago, society took on the risk for you by making tuition cheap and allowing you to benefit from that experience and then pay it back in the form of higher tax revenue. And then here she says, we shifted the risk from society directly to the student, says Deming. She said, in many ways, it's a societal choice we've made. And in that sense, we all have to answer for it. Mm-hmm. I think when it comes to the student loan crisis, we all share a little bit of the blame. When I say we, I mean the government and the colleges themselves. Thank you, ma'am, for clarifying that. And of course, it wouldn't be wrong to include the individual either. But thank you for clarifying. This is the first time in our nation's history that we've ever held this much in student loans. 1.6 trillion. Now here we go. This really messed up my mind. $1.6 trillion. That's a significant fraction of our $20 trillion GDP, which stands for our gross domestic product. That's how much we produce for the country for a year. And then there was a question that was asked. So, is it a crisis? I think it is, says Smith. And again, she is the chief economist at Georgetown University. She said, now this is in quotes now, the entire system should be held to the fire. And then here is my end note right here. I said another wealth transfer occurred this year in February 2020. The gap between the haves and have-nots has widened again. And then, of course, I gave a special shout out to the Information Man show and Information Man Speaks podcast and the Great Black Shark. And of course, any and all other content creators who really got down into the weeds of the stimulus package. But I did want to look at it from, looking that, hey, there has been a student debt bubble, and now the bubble is $1.6 trillion, and it's growing. And that is impacting us as far as acquiring generational wealth, because we're using that money. We're using money that we could put towards generational wealth to paying back student loans. I think that's the end of the article. Yep, that is the end. I know that was a lot to unpack there, but again, hey, student loan debt, and if a person is reported as being default, that affects that person's credit score, and that affects our purchasing power as far as our interest, like what type of interest rate an individual can get, whether it's a mortgage or a car loan. And you know what? Even employers are now, some employers are now looking at an individual's credit score. So this is important. This is nothing to take lightly. Let me go back here. Just want to show some things now. I'm getting to the end. So look at this right here, the aging student debt generation. The economy is feeling the effects as people dragged down by student debt enter their late 30s and early 40s. I'm not there yet. I just pray that the Most High continues to extend me grace to live a few more decades. So looking at this picture right here, this shows the percentage of people ages 35 to 44 with student debt. So in 2001, let me see, 13% of people ages 35 to 44 had student debt. And then 2016, 15 years later, that increased to 34%. That's a lot. And let's see. And then the graph also shows the numbers, which is, what was it, $10,800 compared with $20,000 of student loan debt in 2016. So U.S. student debt in 2003 was 0.24 trillion. And then by 2019, 16 years later, 1.48 trillion. That's a lot. Now remember, this is weighing people down from, passing on, from saving money and, investing into their future and or their family, their children. And then here we go. He- Here comes the famous statement. We're coming to get our check. Yes, indeed. Gotta come for that check. And look at this. I noticed in the article, isn't this sad? I know we're at the end of the article and I am about to, you know what I'm saying, float up on out of here, I guess, as they'd say. But look at that. You see this? This is another article. It says survey finds 36% of parents have taken from college funds to cover crown royal virus costs. Wow. Taken from, mm, that's a shame right there. And I know what some of you are thinking, well, what's the solution? Well, first of all, we have to be together. It's not just coming together, we have to be together. We have to invest in ourselves. Shout out to the Information Man Speaks podcast for doing again a video talking about boycotting pretty much online businesses like Amazon, fast food, and just really saying no to materialism, to consumerism. And if we do spend money, to spend money at a Black owned business. And that starts June the 21st and it will go through to the 27th. And I know Juneteenth is tomorrow. So that's the one thing people understand is when, is money, the bottom line, economics. And I do agree with what him, the real Aaron Collins, Brother Rob, and Brother Moses was talking about yesterday. I had to catch it in the wee hours of the morning, but I caught it, and I'm glad that I was able to catch it. I'm going to have to put that link in the description box because that's really important. He breaks down the details of the boycott. All right. It's about time for me to get on out of here because I'm coming up on that the golden hour. So I'm going to leave you with another beat. Remember, none of my statements are endorsed by the United States Army, Department of Defense, and or any other military branch element or government entity. I love you as a sister. May the Most High be with you to lead, protect you, and guide your footsteps. The reason why I spoke about this is because I don't want us to be distracted by what is going on. These people are evil. They want us to be a slave in more ways than one. I'm gone.